On this episode, we're going to be reviewing the next evolution of the Venezianico Nereide, and we're pretty excited to bring you that in our blueprint segment. It's all about you and your suggestions on the very best frogman that Casio should be making. So we're imagining that uh, very popular G-Shock. And finally, in our viewer comments, we're going to answer the question whether I'm actually going to be able and ever review a Filipino watch brand. Tingnan natin guys, nagpadala ako ng mga messages. Let's see if anyone actually heard or replied. Now, unlike other YouTubers, when I say the watch community, I'm really referring to an intimate and truly social experience with all of you. Now, because, I really care about you, I come up with all of these ideas in order to help you out personally with all of your watch challenges. I notice there the word challenge, okay? Because I know that whenever there's a watch delivery inbound, you have to deal with the very real watch enthusiast's worst enemy. You know what I'm talking about, the wife. And that's why I partnered once again with Horology Story. It seems like I'm partnering with them every other week. And we came up with a revolutionary service this time around. A service like no other around the world. It's the Horology Story Marriage Support Service. Now, what does this service entail? What does this service bring you? Well, it's a very simple service, really. For a small weekly fee, we can provide you the right kind of alibi for that right kind of wife that you have. So, you have, for example, a passive-aggressive wife that always pretends to agree with your purchase. Well, we can come up with a letter suggesting that you have donated to a charity with a certain amount that's equivalent to your watch purchase. So, softening the blow for that explanation of the inevitable conversation with your wife. Do you have a wife that monitors all of your watch deliveries? Well, we've got you covered on that as well. We can send you a notification to your wife about her free spa appointment, giving you enough time to snatch that package before she does. And for those of you out there who have that extra cautious wife, well, we also have this full production automotive accident recreation plan, that's a mouthful, that will give you enough of a serious excuse where that recent fund went to. When of course we know that it went to your watch purchase. But don't worry, your secret's safe with us. We know because Adrian here has tested this many times, and as far as we know, his wife doesn't know yet that he has a Rolex Daytona hiding under their living room rug. So if it works with Adrian, it would work for you as well. Until, that wife finally discovers it. So, that is the Horology Story Marriage Support Service. Inquire now at 1-800-DON'T-TELL-MY-WIFE, and we'll provide you with a discreet and detailed plan catered just for you. Because, watch enthusiasts like us look after each other for a weekly fee. Now, before we go to our actual show, we have, at the very least, some comments about the recent releases of Omega and Tudor. Because, everybody's been talking about it, but or let's just say, I was so busy that I couldn't come up with any ideas or any videos about them. But, in all honesty, I'm not going to do it like how I did it the last time. The last time, I stayed up way too late and woke up very, very early just to catch the latest scoop and produce that content for you. But it didn't really, mattered as much, and it wasn't really as exciting. And you know what? I'm also disappointed with the Omega and Tudors releases this year. And surprisingly, what's surprising about that disappointment is that it ranges from one end of the spectrum to the other. Because Omega disappointed by underwhelming while Tudor was doing too much, which is kind of disappointing in a design standpoint. So let's begin with Omega first. Let's talk about Omega, and what I would like to say about Omega's release of their summer Seamaster 75th anniversary celebration is that they really had this cool gimmick. I love the gimmick that they had throughout their collection. So if you're one of those rich folks out there who could actually afford all of the pieces in the collection, I assume Omega would come up with a special commemorative suitcase for it as well. I've never seen that. It's just a speculation on my end. But it was a cool gimmick because they had the blue colors ranging from light as it goes down with a deeper uh, depth rating, the color also becomes darker. That's a very cool gimmick. I think that's not the first time that it was done, but it was very nice to see how Omega played around with a simple concept without really changing so much in their lineup, which I will get to in a moment, which is the very big disappointment on my part. Now, the second one that I really like is that they rode the trend the right way, the trend of fume dials and the color blue, and they wrote it very beautifully with all of the models in their Seamaster collection. And that's something that we all should appreciate when it comes to designing watches, because color, even the slightest of changes, can make a big difference. Now, the next and final positive thing that I could think about with this Seamaster release is that none of them seems to be limited. So anyone who could have a trip to their Omega boutique could actually reserve, as far as I know, any of these 75th Seamaster anniversary models. Now, which of those models that really piqued my interest? The first one would be kind of strange for many people because I've seen many YouTubers talk about it. It might be some in some of their lists. It's some of the least favorite. It's the Seamaster World Timer. I actually love that Seamaster, and that's because of the complexity of the dial and at the same time the elegance that it has. It's a little bit too big, for my taste or for other people's taste, but I think it's a very nice watch that really captured my interest. And then also the Diver 300M, because that's really the design direction that really appeals to my taste. I like the Diver 300 Professional, which is the go-to Seamaster nowadays, which is not bad, but I like the Diver 300M more. Now, the bad stuff. The gimmick that they had for the dial of the deep sea was actually really great. That would have put it at the top of my list if I rank all of these watches from best to worst. But because they had to put in Omega was here, which is kind of childish in my opinion, even though it's a cool gimmick that you have to shine a black light to see it, really uh, dampens the impression to me. They should have left it as it is. The actual representation, the textural representation of the Mariana Trench or Challenger Deep, that would have been enough. Or maybe if they had just a small Omega insignia and omit the Omega was here thing, that would have been great. That would have been enough for me. But no, they had to make it like childish in that sense. Of course, it's hand script, which is also a big art direction of this channel, but that's a personality that this channel operates on, which I think is the contrary to what the Deep Sea's impression would actually try and display. I think that's kind of jarring to me. And finally, the biggest disappointment for me on Omega on this one is that this is the 75th anniversary of the Omega Seamaster. They could have had the opportunity to produce or reproduce an old model and reproduce it with modern materials and manufacturing techniques. Maybe, like, for example, an Omega Seamaster chronograph. We had a lot of Seamasters back in the time, and this was their chance, a 75th anniversary, a milestone anniversary, to re-release an old or vintage design. Maybe they're not yet done. Hopefully, I'm still holding hope that maybe Omega still has that one more thing. Oh, and one more thing by Apple, and they will be releasing a new redesigned Omega Seamaster. But if this is all that they have to offer, then it's kind of underwhelming. It's a big milestone year, and they blew it without releasing a new or an all new redesigned Omega Seamaster. Now, moving to Tudor, the FXD lineup continues to grow, which is a good thing. That's something that I find very positive. The reception initially was kind of mixed with the FXD, but veering towards the positive, and now it's we're gradually seeing what Tudor really has in store for the FXD, and it seems that they really are trying to expand the FXD even more as the time passes. And they're using sports collaboration to tell everybody that, hey, the FXD is here to stay and it's not just a one time deal. Another thing that I like about Tudor's design direction and marketing direction is that production direction is that they still continue to use exotic materials. In this time it's a carbon case, which is something that I admire with Tudor. It's something that they continue to present as an alternative to its big sister, the Rolex company, and not to mention that these are amazingly priced at $5,000 and $3,000 respectively. These are very, very affordable. Well, relatively affordable to the luxury watch brand crowd, and it looks something that is unique to the Tudor lineup of sports watches that we don't see every day, that we don't see on this kind of price range. However, that's also the downside of Tudor with their partnership with Alinghi and RedBull. It's kind of too much. First and foremost, they're using more than three colors here. They have the blue, they have the red, they have the black and gray, and then they have the white colors of the indices. It's just all over the place. I would have asked, I would have like demanded a little bit more restraint on their part, when it comes to their color schemes. I know that they have to put white and red in there because of Alini and because of Red Bull, but they could have done this in a more subtle way that's less in your face, because you see the reds everywhere, the reds on the outlines, the reds on the dial, the reds everywhere, and I didn't like that. I know those are accents, but you can do accent colors in a subtle and classy way, even if you're designing a sports watch for that part. And I feel by doing too much, it kind of lost their identity. It kind of looks like a microbrand now. It's rather than the Tudor that we all know and love. The Tudor's always been um, explorative when it comes to their designs compared to other more restrained brands, but this is pushing far too much. This is kind of like going in the microbrand or Invicta side of the fence. No offense, but that's like the most hyperbolic, illustrative uh, narrative that I could come up with. Yeah, and I think that's kind of disappointing. But I guess they had the opportunity to one up Omega on their own week of releases, but they kind of blew it too. So hopefully next time they can learn from this mistake and have a little bit more restraint, and we could see the Tudor that we all know and love. And yeah, Omega, please come on, release a new um, Seamaster redesign. I mean, look at the past few years, what you've been releasing. They released uh, a very nice James Bond edition. Even if it's not a full redesign, but they came up with cool designs within the James Bond Seamaster anniversary. Also, what about that Speedmaster escapement that you could regulate? That was also another big innovation. We're happy to get those. But for the 75th anniversary of the Seamaster, a collection of watches that had so many great designs through the years, you could have picked one of the good retro or vintage designs to re-release this year, and you didn't do it. Hopefully, you are still doing it, but if not, then this is a big disappointment for me. Now, unlike Omega and Tudor, when it comes to innovating or updating their collection, Venezianico has been doing a great work at that. We've seen Venezianico reimagine their own branding. We've seen Venezianico go through all of the redesigns of their watches, and the Nereide is one of their flagship collections. And this Nereide is not just thinner, but they snuck in a lot of fine redesigns in this case, and would like to examine each and every one of them with the Nereide Ceramica from Venezianico. This video is brought to you by Venezianico. Prolific might be the best word to describe this Venice-rooted brand, and refined could be used for this latest iteration of the Nereide. We have reviewed other versions of the Nereide, and this retains the spirit of the Venetian design. As I tossed this on my wrist, however, I noticed that there's something different with this one compared to its predecessor. It still wears big with its 42mm case of this pirate's dainty cuff. However, the case profile makes it more curvaceous. I love the Canoba bracelet, but the Ceramica introduces the brand's contoured rubber strap. It sits flush on the case and lugs, making it feel deeply integrated to the case design. It's also a little more rough and stiff compared to fluorine rubber. This band is crafted in Italy, in keeping with the company's initiative to support local businesses. Our channel also supports its friends, and Artem Straps will also make an appearance on this video. This new olive green sailcloth adds a touch of subtle vibrance to the piece and more texture to the aesthetics. If you prefer the understated appeal of a black strap, Artem also offers that with its loopless line of bands. It may not be as integrated as the case design, but it's significantly less bulky. Lastly, despite what some watch fans may say, a signature pirate collection is not complete without a NATO somewhere. This Bond-style fabric feels just right on this new Nereide. With all of these options, there's already a bit of playability that could make this your only Venezianico. That statement may land me on a watch review detention by discouraging you from buying the brand's other offerings. So in an effort to further dig myself into a deeper hole, let's pit it against the other Venezianico watches. Personally, the 39mm Nereide GMT is the perfect size for my wrist. It virtually has no overhang, but that thickness sways my heart towards this new Ceramica. Against the Redendore Ultra Black, the Ceramica simply has more going for it. For fairness sake, the Ultra Black is minimalist by design, but it also means less situations to wear. Finally, beside my favorite, the Tosteno, the similarities are very clear. There is a certain finesse that you can feel with this new design, making the previous one feel slightly outdated. We'll explore that further, but this clearly shows the evolutionary step this Ceramica made. Let's check out what's new. The case dimensions remained virtually unchanged, with both being 42mm. The thickness is 0.10mm less than the original, but it looks way thinner because there's less surface on the side. The bezel height is less pronounced, and this reduces its presence even more. The bracelet part remained marginally identical, but I'm pretty sure the end links are revised to match the improved lugger. Other aspects of the bracelet was improved, with the emblem glass cover being a bit more heftier this time around. It's not that it was a nail hazard or something, but it's nice to see that it further matches the center links. On the smaller details, the lug shape is tapered a little more, the markers are more geometric, and we get a different second hand on this one as well. Now let's get our macro lens and look a bit closer. One thing to notice is that it's a definite smudge magnet. There's far more polished facets for this case, bezel, and dial that you might want to have a wiping cloth handy all the time. The most noticeable addition are the polished chamfers that gives this a more elegant and shapely body. This also makes the case appear thinner. The bracelet remains the same with adequate articulation. We still have that butterfly clasp that closes the band seamlessly with it being capped by the brand emblem. The polished buttons are also visually obscured because of the polished surface. The Konobo bracelet remains one of my favorite parts of the Nereide design. The case back is engraved with a Nereide submarine that's being held in place with a number of screws. This keeps the image upright in the same orientation. Back onto the dial, there's a bit more craftsmanship to enjoy. The whole dial for this Ceramica is made from Venetian enamel work. This makes the dial surface extremely glossy and amazingly deep visually. This really emphasizes the volume of the indexes and objects over it. On top of that, the loom on this is fantastic, an inherited trait from the Nereides that came before it. All around the case, the Venezianico flourishes are evident from the crown emblem to the well-decorated case back. There's enough of the old to keep its identity, but there's also a good amount of the new to pull in the fans and recruits. Take for example this new strap that's more than just a thrown-in surplus component. This one was actually designed to be a true extension of the case. It sits conveniently flush to the case and the lugs just melt into the rubber sculpture, which is pretty cool. Mix all of this up with two different textures and it all adds up to a fantastic new addition. Priced at €779 for the rubber strap option with the Konobo bracelet, it's a good solid diver that can cover for most occasions. Venezianico is now past the point of proving itself as a solid brand. It's a prolific brand that's measured through its refinements. The Nereide Ceramica from Venezianico is a fine example of how to refine your collection in a subtle yet satisfying way that does not disappoint your fans, but at the same time offers them a little bit more of what the future has to hold for the brand. With this new thinner case profile, it's a lot easier to wear, and at the same time it still maintains that Nereide spirit. That's the Venezianico Nereide Ceramica. Now, sometimes I'm a little bit too spoiled with microbrands because this is the area where watch companies tend to play around a little bit more. But you know, G-Shock as a big brand has always been bold and never shy when it comes to redesigns of their watches. As we have seen in the past year, in the past months, we've seen a complete redesign of the Frogman in the MRG lineup. And that, I think, is the top of the crop when it comes to Frogman. But you, the fans, still has some better ideas, or I think really better ideas than Casio. And I want to show them to you. And this is the subject of our blueprint segment: how to redesign the very best MRG Frogman. Let's begin with the analog Frogman, and this was really contentious when it first came out. There was ramblings that it pulled too much away from the signature digital Frogman look, but in time it found its audience and there are some suggestions for its improvement. It still carries that signature asymmetrical case design, but now housing an index dial with a second time zone for a sub-dial. This analog design seems to entice some fans to actually go full mechanical with a true dive bezel. So I took this Royal Navy Frogman as the base watch and took this Patty Tuna as the donor for the bezel. I felt this really matched the gray and blue color palette. I also cleaned up the remnants of the bezel guards that covers part of the dial as a finishing touch. This now has the impression of a suit-up Seiko diver. As is, it could pass off as an actual product that could be sold on store shelves. When it comes to Frogman though, we always have in our minds the tried and tested traditional configuration. It's a classic design that has endeared itself to fans throughout the decades. Those metallic accents over this digital display is just an amazing blend of retro aesthetics with accessible premium materials. This becomes the next challenge for us to check out. A viewer asked how this iconic watch would look like with an MIP modern display. The GBX model is ideal for this kind of display transplant. I used the negative display MIP for this render, but the positive display configuration is not a bad idea either. I started to work on the tone of the resin case and prepped the image for recoloring. Green seemed to be a good idea that would be in character for the G Squad sub-collection. Neon accents further gives this watch its character and more impact. This redesign feels only as different, if not more, than the analog Frogman. It's a complete change of personality, but it also feels more like an MIP watch that got the Frogman treatment rather than the other way around. But the latest and greatest Frogman is launched through the MRG line. It's G-Shock's most technologically advanced diver, and people like me are just salivating at the possibilities. First, I asked around what people wanted to see with the next model.
Design, I'll tell you, time teller, what color would you like that digital MRG Frogman? Olive drab. Like olive drab or like coyote tan. Something like tactical would be really cool.
Color swapping is a great way to refresh or continue the line without costing much in production. The olive drab hue is a great utilitarian color that can be paired with more earthy colors such as brown or mahogany. But let's give what the people want by adding the digital module on an MRG construction. If G-Shock did this with the MRG Square, I don't see why it's not possible for this Frogman. Let's now complete the look with accent colors and its signature MRG touches like the applied gold badge. I also made the display more contemporary with G-Shock's ability to add an LED backlight that gradually fades out. It's a more premium touch that elevates this against its predecessors. Then the bracelet is made from titanium, but unlike the MRG Square, this is a bit less polished but still luxurious in appearance. Lastly, let's involve the Japanese artisans on this bezel. You all know I love my handcrafted G-Shocks, and this one will definitely need that treatment. This could be the pinnacle of both the MRG and Frogman production. All of this is possible now because of the vertical construction scheme of the new MRG Frogman. This is also a lesson for me. You watch fans, die-hard G-Shock owners are teaching me what the Frogman is all about. It is really essential that Casio should be paying attention to, and they would surely get more dollars from your pockets, most importantly for many brands out there. But at the same time, it continues to grow their fans as they listen to them. And we know that G-Shock is listening, and hopefully they're watching this video because these are your designs. These are your blueprints for the very best Frogman. It's time, once again, for our viewer comments. So, you are not just teaching me about how to redesign Casios and G-Shocks. Some of you are even teaching me proper grammar. Look at what 17 CMM Mittel Rare Meinen Werfer 81 has to say about the Glycine Airman review that I had like 8 decades ago. He says, the plural of man is men, not mans. Yes, you're right. Thank you. But I'm a pirate, so I refuse to accept your advice. I'm still going to call them Glycine Airmans. Right? I have to keep in character too, you know. I have my own spirit of rebelliousness. Gabriel Brostinu 8586 says he's talking about again the venerable DWH 5600, and he says here, nah, it's a great watch, I love it, let me give my 2 cents. And he like really gave his 2 cents. His 2 cents is like a lot, like 200 or 1000 words here. But I like a lot of the points that he mentioned. He mentioned about the connection issues. Yes, it's not flawless and whatnot, but I mean, It's actually surprisingly holding up. To him, he's tested this at his two-story house, and it works flawlessly. He's never had any issues when it comes to resetting the watch. The user said that the battery is not optimal. He disagrees. He's getting some really good battery life with this DWH 5600. But one thing that I wanted to highlight that he mentioned is that, by the way, the damn bear paw that I keep seeing from people complain about is that I never had one issue with it. Maybe if they don't tighten the damn strap so much that they won't have it. The heart rate monitor works if the watch is a bit loose too. It doesn't need to stop your arm blood flow to get it work. Actually, this is also true with the Apple Watch. You don't really need to make it like too tight on your wrist for it to work. It could work with a little loose, so you don't have to like really tighten. He has a good point there. You don't really need to tighten your watches to your wrist to the point that it actually creates an imprint, crevices of its backplate on your wrist. You don't need to do that. Very good point there by Gabriel. Gabriel Bros Tenu 8586. Dutch 6794 says, no sympathy for anyone that thought this was going to be a good solar smartwatch and bought it regretting it. He's talking still about the DWH 5600. It's Casio jumping on the bandwagon and fleecing people for money when it's nowhere near that price. It's a G-Shock watch, not a smart or fitness watch. Most of what he said is true. I agree. But jumping the bandwagon is not a bad thing for watch companies or any other company out there. And companies do that all the time. Now, for the people that he doesn't have any sympathy with, I can contend that not all of those people regretting it had this kind of sentiment. I think that they really are fans of G-Shock and they're willing to give G-Shock a try, even if they fail to get whatever they were expecting. So there's a tinge of regret to that, but there's a little bit of sympathy there, at least for me. For him, he's a little bit less forgiving, but I'm a little bit more forgiving as your watch pirate captain. Because I've been there before as well, and it's really not the end of the world. Some regret, it's fine. Don't get depressed about it. Here's some comments from the new Tissot Sidereal, that the short that I released a couple of days ago. It's going to be released first at Shiva's channel, so stay tuned for that. But then I'm going to release a little bit more in-depth discussion and review of it on the channel in the next few days. It's just a little too busy on my part in the past few days, so I couldn't finish the editing on this one. But stay tuned, because I do have some great news to let you all know, and that's what's kept me busy. But until I could show you the fruits of our labor, just stay tuned and watch out for our upcoming videos. So going back to the comment, the new Tissot Sidereal is short that I made. Basil's just looked, and he was really anticipating what I'm going to say. Ocean Zoo 6585 says, he likes the case and the dial designs, but the strap is a big question for me. Who thinks it's a good idea to put a flapping strap on a dive watch? It's going to come loose too easy. Well, Ocean Zoo 6585, actually it's not. I like this strap by Tissot, the way they did it. It's not just as or even more comfortable than your regular tropical strap or rubber straps that you'd see on dive watches, but at the same time it really is securing the watch really well. They're using the same pins. Tissot, I don't know if they're titanium, but they are metal pins on both ends, and they really dig into the hole of the strap, and you have enough strap holes to fasten it to. so it could fit your wrist very, very nicely and very tightly. And the more fitting it is on your wrist, the more tension it has as it pulls back up with its elasticity, and that kind of creates also an additional friction and hold to it. So I'm pretty confident it's going to hold itself, and at the same time it has that loop and the strap on the strap, that rubber fastening to each other, also creates enough friction for it to hold. So if you ever get one, Ocean Zoo 65, have some confidence on it, on wearing it. Even if you dive with it, it's going to stay on your wrist very, very easily, if not even more compared to other watches. Also on the new Tudor, not everyone is liking it, even though I mentioned that it's one of the hottest Tissot watches in recent weeks. Ilanto says it's atrocious. Maybe it is, at least for us. I'll be honest, I'm not really in love with it, but I like it enough. But not at least enough not to call it atrocious, as Alianto says here. But that is very subjective. Some people will not like this kind of design, and it kind of looks really dated, if you ask me. With all of those colors on the dial and the segmentations, it really is dated, and that may be contributing to Alianto's experience there. Now, we were reviewing the Nereide from Venezianico earlier. We reviewed previous Venezianico Nereide, the Tungsteno. And here's what Lock Handle 8276 has to say about that. I don't like that it's a limited model. This watch has a lot of potential if it can come in smaller sizes also, and there needs to be a 39.5mm version which uses an SW300, so it can also be a bit thinner. Well, it already is a bit thinner now if you look at it, but this is the ceramic version. Remember that one that I reviewed earlier was the tungsten version, which is tremendously stunning, especially with that polished bezel, the tungsten polished bezel that's virtually unscratchable. And I agree, this model should not be limited, but I think Venezianico will re-release this given enough interest on it. It's something that they've executed adamantly, and I do want to see it in a 38 millimeter version, and maybe raise the box sapphire crystal a little bit more. Make it a box sapphire crystal instead of a flat crystal. That could be another suggestion. Venezianico, I know you're listening, so listen to what Lock Handle 8276 has to say. Next, Crash Carson 14 says, does that way to fill the gap with the spring bar still work? Mine rattles too much with the gap. He's talking about that mod that I made about the GM2100. Remember GM2100 that I modded with a bracelet to make it look like GMB 2100, and I think there are now better fitting bracelets specifically for the GM 2100. So just look up AliExpress and see which one you could find, and I think that's not present there anymore. However, if you've already bought one like I did, yes, just slap on or sneak in a small spring bar there from the bracelet itself, maybe one of those extra links that you had left over. Sneak it in, and it should be enough to hold the gap, and so that it doesn't flap as loosely as I had it. Next, user QU8BM5XM3D says he upgraded the firmware of the latest of his DW5600, and now the A button will not work. About 3 hours of owning it, and he's saying that comment. So I reached out to him and asked him, how is it working now? It's been 2 days. Is it still bricked? And he replied with a second update, and a second update was available in the app, and after the first one, which solves the problem. Shame they make us go through the bad one first. Well, yeah, at least now it's working. He doesn't have a problem with that anymore. Yes, sometimes those things happen. The first firmwares, the first releases of the module may be in production already, and there's no way for them to change that, especially when most of them are on their way already to their retailers. So there might be no way for any brand, for that matter, to avoid that. But I'm just happy that they released a second software update to correct all of the issues. I guess that's the good and bad side of having these upgradable modules, and that's why many G-Shock owners just want a regular module without all of these smart features, so that they can fully enjoy G-Shock for what it is. They just want that extra MIP display. I'm just hoping, that display doesn't eat up much of the battery power, the point that, yeah. But I think Casio is also rather bullish at using these MIP displays, as we've seen other releases after the DWH5600 using the MIP display, and it's still on the G-Shock moves. So let's see if one day they're going to take the MIP display and move it to the regular G-Shock modules. Next, Reese Brookhoven 3962 says, I see a lot of ads for this brand. Are they worth looking? We're talking about the Venezianico. Are they worth looking into, and are they like other BS brands? Look, I'm not gonna fault a brand for exposing themselves to all of these micro marketing strategies, especially in Facebook and social media, and even in YouTube and some of those videos. And well, this channel is built around the marketing of these micro brands. That doesn't mean that they are cheap or inferior watches. Maybe Reese here had an experience with other watches who's been publicizing themselves in Facebook or in social media, and that's maybe creating an impression on himself that they are BS brands, as he put it. But what I can say is that Venezianico is one of the best quality micro brands out there, despite of what other YouTubers may have to say. I think they're one of the best compared to the other micro brands that I've reviewed. And I've heard also other micro brands stories, and at the very least, Venezianico is a little bit more refined compared to many of them, and they have their integrity too. They don't want their watches to be Swiss made, for example, or to be tagged as Swiss made. They're proud to be a Venice brand, and I think there's so much character to the brand that not only elevates it from other BS brands, but at the same time it reflects also in the design that they have. And Venezianico really is worth looking into, despite the impression of being a cheaper brand because of that marketing. I don't see that personally, but Reese does. But Reese, rest assured, it's a really good brand, and they're not paying me to say that, actually, right? They're not perfect. They have their faults, as you've seen in my past reviews, but they're really good and really refined. And I also have other ideas with regards to their marketing. I feel that they shouldn't discount their watches so often and so quickly. That, for example, that I think they could improve on. If they do that, they stick to their guns, I think people will buy their brands, and that could actually elevate their impression even more. That I find is something that they could work on. I don't think that they should discount their watches immediately, especially after launching them. But it's worth looking. Venezianico is worth looking. Peter Campbell 3828 says, Design Atelier coming to you direct from behind a dumpster down the street. Almost, Peter. And he, after I banned my wife from the show, you see, she's not here today. Well, she's in the bedroom, probably locked it already because it's already late, and I'm making this video. So I'm not doing this down the street behind the dumpster, but I am making this video while she's already sleeping. Don't tell her. Jimmy Kincaid says, on one hand, I'm like $4,000 for a G-Shock is stupid. On the other hand, I'm like spending $4,000 on a watch that isn't shock resistant is also stupid. Well, I mean, you can't have it all, Jimmy. No. I know you're a honorable watch pirate Hall of Famer, but I mean, you gotta pick your side. It's either you like it or not. No, but I think Jimmy wants his G-Shock under the $1,000 range. I think that's reasonable enough. But spending $4,000 on a watch is still a barrier that's way too much for him to overcome, and that's fine. We give Jimmy a pass. He's not gonna be banned from the show because of that. Dominic Francis 9808 says, don't get rid of the Lego camera stand. We all love it. Loads of character, love, heart shape, whatever. Yes, so it seems that this mic stand has more love. It's getting more love than the host itself. I'm almost nearly going to ban you from the show for that, but he loves the Lego stand. Actually, I want to redesign it. It's still a little flimsy from one connector, and that one gray piece kind of, is annoying me. It's been there for ages. I wanted to replace that, but I couldn't find a piece that's all black. I nearly wanted to paint that so that it's all black, or maybe I'll just like add more gray accents here and there so that it balances out the design. But anyway, yes, I'm still going to use this mic for now, especially when I banned my wife from the show. So she's even more adamant at not giving me funds to buy another mic. Anyway, sad. Vanilla Coffee says, Vanilla Coffee, imagine if this guy actually road tested the watch before condemning it. Imagine if a YouTuber were to do that. Is that a silent sarcasm that I could read from there? You're banned from the show. Okay, well, going back to his comment, you don't have to road test anything to have an opinion about it. Do I need to road test a fire truck or Tim Cook's yacht to give a comment about it? I don't think so. So, anyway. Ender1077 asks, any chance you might review a Filipino microbrand like De Guzman? I got their DG010010 with the Baybayin script, and it's pretty sweet. Here's the deal. I am pure Filipino, and I didn't even know what a Baybayin script was, but I checked out De Guzman, and I sent them a message, but they have not reached back to me as of yet. But hey, that's what, 6 days ago. Let's see what will happen. But I do want to review a Filipino microbrand. And yes, let's switch to Tagalog here. At kung meron man magpapadala ng relo sa channel natin, yes, I would love to review it. It's going to be a privilege na mag-review ng Filipino brand for the first time. Una kong ni-reach out ay yung makina. I love some of their designs. Pero sabi nila, it's just too far to send the watch to me. Yun ang problema ngayon kasi Aruba is like right here and ang Pilipinas ay nandito. Kahit saang parte ng mundo umikot para makarating sa Pilipinas, it's like the other side of the world. Kaya ang shipping is expensive on top na I'm going to keep the watch. That's what I usually ask watch brands if they ask me to review their watches. I usually ask them that I keep the watch to compensate for the production. Pero yeah, yun ang plan natin. Chinek ko rin. Nag-check na rin ako ng ibang mga brands, Filipino watch brands. At I'm surprised na marami na palang mga Filipino watch brands na nandoon. Pero De Guzman at Makina, yun ang aking top priorities na reviewin. Kung De Guzman watches and Makina, kung nakikinig kayo, I'm here. You know, kung gusto niyo na mag-review ako ng watch ninyo, ng mga relo ninyo, I'm willing to do that. And here's the thing, I'm willing to do that not only on English but also in the Tagalog language. What about that, right? So that's twice the work. If kung willing kayo na maki-collaborate sa Design Atelier, I'm willing to work with you guys. And at the same time, and again, gaya nung sabi ko kanina, meron kami mga plans on the back end, behind the scenes. So maybe that's another opportunity besides just reviewing it in our channel. Meron pa ako isang nakita na watch brand na kinda interesting is yung Kaya. Kaya ko. There you go. Kaya ko. It's kinda interesting pero I don't know kung anong model nila ang gusto kong reviewin. You know, so that's another thing. Pero yeah, I'm willing to review Filipino watch brands out there kung meron kayong nais na ipa-review na mga relo ninyo at gusto nyo ng isang design-oriented channel to review your watch. Well, nandito ako, you know, huwag nyo kalimutan, marunong ako mag-Tagalog din, you know, I mean, a little bit, still. I can still do some Tagalog here. But, yun ang exception ko sa inyo. Mga Tagalog pirates sa Pilipinas, mga pirata sa Pilipinas. No, well, that sounded wrong. Watch pirates of the Philippines. Let the watch brands know. Design Atelier is here. Filipino ko. I can review your watch not only in English but also in Tagalog. That's an exception I'm going to make for all of you Filipino watch brands. So please take advantage of that. Be a watch pirate. And let's wrap it up with Mr. Zelos. Who would have thunk? Welcome to the world of smartwatches. They are buggy and always need updates. Another reason I don't own that kind of watch anymore. I like the bloopers. Humor is always welcome. A wife ignoring her husband? Never heard of such a thing. Dust? Are you kidding? That's proof of one brand better than the other? You are banned from the channel for that's sacrilege. I'm reporting you to Elshin. He's talking about me putting the Panerai crown guard on Zelos. Well, first, my wife bans me from the house, then bans me from the bedroom, and now Mr. Zelos bans me from my own show. What about you? Comment down below and find more ways to ban me from my own show.
What do you need that for again? The mirror?
To see myself, where I'm positioned. Actually, you could like tilt it a little bit to this side. Too much. Yes, thank you. You see? Yeah, I'm filming already. Yeah. Why? You're in it. In the background.
No. Wait, am I in the video?
I think so. You are.
What? Did you look at the?
No, you're not. But hurry up, you're distracting. That's the problem when the fridge is there. On this episode, we're going to review my. Hurry up, bro. I don't have Venezianico.